Thank you so much, Sophie. And of course, thank you to all our esteemed speakers and awesome women who've spoken today. I felt like, I was there at the infancy of all of this, and it's just so delightful to see this come to fruition. And I learned a lot myself, even though I've been in industry for 8 years plus. So thank you so much for bringing your skill sets and talents and planting seeds, just like the objectives of the program say. So awesome job. While we're waiting for questions to come in, we do have some just to kick us off. And please do go in the chat and type your questions for our speakers. So I'll start out with a couple, and then hopefully we get some. So I'll send the first one to Nene. So, as the process of making medicines evolves, what do you think the future of making medicines looks like? What sector do you think will have the most changes over time?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think with the advances we've had in technology, we're definitely going to see more and more drug development using artificial intelligence and big data and data mining to really collect all the information that we've amassed over the last several decades of drug discovery to really pinpoint what type of diseases we can treat. I think we're going to see a lot more personalized medicine going on. So where in the past we would develop a treatment for cancer, for example, that killed everything, kill all the cells, because where cancer is fast growing, we're able to, with the knowledge and the research that is ongoing, we're able to identify specific genes and figure out a way to target them more specifically, so you're not killing the patient as you're trying to get rid of the cancer. So I think definitely people who are inclined towards technology and any type of coding is going to be important, and also just understanding that we have reached a point as a society where we've gotten all the low-hanging fruit, right? People don't die from the diseases we died from in the 1800s, and so we're going more towards things that are more specific genetic diseases that are targeted towards one gene that we were aware of. So there's a lot of personalized medicine, and I think feel free for the other panels to join in. As we become a more global society, we're able to use the data from the clinical trial data from different communities, different countries to identify what drug safety looks like, and so we can target a wider population with the information that we're getting from all the clinical trials.
Thank you, Dr. Nene. Anyone else want to chime in?
I will chime in terms of the use of big data. I think that's an important factor, because more and more pharmaceutical companies, instead of being constantly competitive, I mean, they're going to always be competitive. Everyone's trying to get to the market first, but there are certain diseases where there's multiple companies working on the same disease area and such. And what we're finding too is people are now using these platform trials where they're looking at multiple companies joining this single trial series, where they're looking at each company's molecule or a new compound, a new drug. I'm trying to keep it simple, sorry. A new drug, in terms of which one's going to work better, which one's going to take the lead. So I think we're going to see more and more of that. And then also the data that we all already have. Every company has tons and tons of human data in different diseases, that if you combine it, you can really start seeing trends in terms of which drugs work, which drugs does not. So I think we'll see more and more of those collaborations.
Awesome, yeah. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Shelley.
To add to that, so precision medicine is where we're going. That's bottom line. Nowadays, if I'm looking back forward 10 years, we're going to have biomarkers for every disease. So you could have the same disease that I have. Let's say you have Crohn's disease, but we're going to respond differently to different medicines based on what's going on inside of us. And that's where we're going. We need to truly understand on that molecular level, what are the biomarkers for each patient that will make them respond to each medication. And I believe that's where we're going. With insurance companies are not going to pay for everyone to use a product anymore. It has to be very targeted.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think you guys must have all done an awesome job presenting today, which I totally agree. That the question that we've got in the chart from Quenisha is, when faced with a fearful moment such as presentation, what are some tips to help you get through it? So what's your secret sauce, your secret ingredient for the great job you did today? I guess we can start with Karen. You've probably done a ton of these, so.
I think that it's just being yourself. I think that's, the key thing. I think that people really want to hear a story and want to understand you as a person. And when you do that, you're able to exemplify yourself to others. So I tell everyone, always just to be yourself. One of the things I want to leave is to surround yourself around positive people. You become that with whom you associate. I tell that all the time when I'm mentoring someone. You put yourself in that circle with positive people and people that are going to uplift you, challenge you to become better. If you are the smartest one in the room, you need to get a new circle. So I always want to sit myself, beside other smart, amazing people so that I can learn from like all of the amazing women on this panel today. I think that's what helps us. So, and again, when you get there, then bring someone else along with you.
Thank you, Karen. Anyone else? Maybe someone else can add another angle. Tell them how you've grown, like maybe from your first big presentation and how you feel like you've challenged yourself to do better.
So my first big presentation was in grad school. Actually, I'd been teaching before then, but I was teaching freshman biology, so they believed everything I said. But in grad school, I remember giving a presentation in a lecture hall that holds 300 people, and that was my first. And I memorized everything I wanted to say to my commas, my full stops, and my question mark. I just was so rigid. There was no passion. It was just saying it. To now where I'm very interactive and I want to like engage my audience. And so what have I changed since then till now? It's really knowing your material, being very comfortable with your material, being able to tell a story about that material, and trying to really relax. I tell people I mentor to really, before your presentation, practice your first slide over and over and over again. If you can get through your first slide without saying, you know what I mean, and then you can probably get through the rest of your presentation because you know your data better than anyone else.
Awesome. Bridget, you look like you want to say something.
I think one of the things that I try to do is really just think about the audience that I'm talking to. So not just all the information that I know, because actually being a science communicator is one of like really my big passions, and really trying to make sure that people can understand. I think all of us in the industry, we end up kind of almost learning a whole different language, which we may not realize. But when you're just talking to the average person, especially like a patient, they're scared that, that comprehension level that they probably already have goes way down. And honestly, the average, I think, reading and even comprehension level in the United States is about 6th to 8th grade. So if you just talk to people as if you're talking to a junior high kid, pretty much everybody can understand that. Nobody's like, no, make it more complicated. Just really just be yourself. Talk to people like you would in just a regular conversation. And usually that kind of works out well for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We do have a question for Dr. Shola. Someone wanted to know more about global medical directors. Can you describe that role more, I guess, versus you talked about international medical directors?
Sure. So global medical directors are pretty much the forefront of medical affairs. They're the ones that decide, okay, this is what the strategy is going to be. We're going to have this platform. This is how we're going to tell the story of our pathophysiology of the disease, talking about why you get the disease, how we treat the disease, what the efficacy of our drug is, safety, et cetera. When we talk about international, because we're not normally just one company in one country, as Natasha said, we go to a lot of countries. You also need some medical people on that side of the business to speak the medical story. And those are international medical directors. Now, US can be the international medical director as I am right now because my company is based out of Germany. So my global medical director actually sits in Germany. And then the other countries that BI supports, which is a lot of countries, then we have our international medical directors from there.
All right, thank you. I hope that answers. And if you have further questions for Dr. Charlotte, please reach out to her on our social media, on LinkedIn. I have a question that I think is a great one for people who are curious, who are starting out in their career. What is one piece of practical advice you would give someone starting out in this industry? I'll go to, let's hear from Ms. Shirley.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think one key thing is really networking. You need to really build a good network. When you first started out, you may not know a lot of people, but the industry is so connected. It's like, there's so many different roles and functions that feed into drug development, the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry. Finding somebody you can connect with, and you can find those networking connections in odd places sometimes. So when I was in high school, I actually had a summer job working as a glassware watcher in a Miles laboratory. Miles is part of Bayer Industries in the laboratory. And I would wash glassware for the labs, but I got a chance to interact and talk to a lot of the scientists that way, just very casually. And you'd be surprised where you can build connections that you don't even think about. So the head of one of the departments, he would come by and talk to me on a regular basis. So when I got ready to apply for my first job, I could use him as a reference. And he then became kind of like a pseudo mentor for me. But you would have never thought that you would make a connection with somebody with a job like just washing glassware. So again, it's making connections, but also being open and listening and being aware of who's around you and paying attention and kind of positioning yourself in a place where you can be noticed and you can, make those inroads. So that's one way.
Great, thank you. I know Karen's got something to say about that, Bridget too, and Nene. Nene actually incorporated some of that into her slides. But I'll let Karen go first, then we'll come to Bridget.
I'll be very brief, but I'll just tap it. I'm just going to build off of what Shirley was saying, trying to be noticed. That's probably the one thing I wish I would have known earlier. And that's when you are in your first job, no matter what you're doing, if there's an initiative or a work stream or a task force, sign up for those items, because your day-to-day activity, yes, you're going to do that and you're going to do it well and people will see you. But when you get on initiatives and task teams, now you're going to see different people from different functional groups. You're going to see people at a different levels. And that's when you have the opportunity to make your statement. So use that opportunity to be able to rise to the occasion. And that was where you'll get noticed. And then your name will be discussed in meetings when you're not there. They'll be like, oh my gosh, I remember so-and-so, she's on that. Right, she's on that task team. She's the one that thought of this idea. So that's when you see people and you're like, how did they get promoted or how did they get that opportunity? That's how they got that, because they made sure that their names were discussed when they were not in the room.
Great point. Bridget, you can go ahead.
I was just going to say that just trying to be a resource to others, I think, is a really big thing. I learned early in my career, the second job that I had was working, as I mentioned, for the Institutional Review Board. And I can't tell you, I was probably 3-4 years out of college, how many investigators, so these are the scientists, these are the big brains, they just did not understand federal regulations. And so they're calling me and I'm breaking it down and explaining. And, it doesn't matter how long it takes. If you need your staff person to call me, I'll walk them through it. Just really being a resource and helpful to others is just such a simple thing that I think gets overlooked, because there are many people who are just going about their day and don't really have time or don't have the desire to be helpful to others. But I think just being somebody that, when they're thinking of, I don't understand this, oh, I can call Bridget, she'll help me. She helped me last time. Just really being that person, as Karen mentioned, that your name is coming up in rooms that you're not even in, I think is just, but it really comes from a desire just to be helpful and just to help people understand, because it is a complicated industry. So just being helpful and being a resource to others is really big.
Great. Thank you. Nana, did you want to add something? I'm not sure. I want to give you a chance to.
No, I mean, everybody covered everything that, I wanted to say pretty much. Just being open to doing things that you wouldn't consider your regular job. So I know Bridget talked about, learning how to read protocols when that wasn't part of her job. And that really just helps people know that you're interested in, and you're curious and interested to learn, and they will be willing to teach you. So don't be afraid to ask questions. It's never going to look dumb. I find that the more that I've learned, the more I know what I don't know. So I'm always like, teach me, can you explain this to me? And in seeing your enthusiasm and curiosity, people respond to that, and they want to help you and see you grow.
Awesome. Natasha, please go ahead.
Sure. I have to go back to my fair quote in terms of taking on the big project, the high profile project. I remember early in my career, I wanted all the garbage projects that no one wanted to do because those are the ones that doesn't get any attention. So I could hide and do my work, and I did it well, but I was, hidden away doing my work, so I don't get too much attention on me. And then, after a few years, I realized, well, gee, everyone's getting promoted, but not me. Well, because I was hiding in the corner doing my little project that no one else wanted to do. And it's a good thing to take on those projects, but you also can't be afraid to step up and say, hey, I want to work on this big project and work on it, and as soon as I did that, my career changed tremendously. And I still do that today. It's like, you have to raise your hand, and if you don't say it, no one's going to know. No one's going to know that you're interested in working on a high profile project, but you can't let that fear keep you in that corner. And I can tell you from experience, I did it for a while early on in my career where I was just afraid. I didn't want to be in the limelight. I don't want everyone looking at me. I don't want, everyone picking apart my work. But once you get over that and you raise your hand and say, I want to work on that big project, you'll be amazed at how many doors open.
Thanks, Natasha. We are almost out of time, and we want to honor it. So I'll throw one last question, and it came from me, so it's my favorite question. Just kidding. So if you could go back in time to the early stages of your career, and I'll give everyone a chance to answer. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give, I guess, your younger self or yourself at the earlier stages? What are some decisions you think you should have made, or something you did well? It doesn't have to be negative. So I'll start from Shola and just have everyone go around as we wrap up.
So for me, I would have actually finished pre-med and gone to medical school, because I had to almost teach myself medicine on my own. I can take my boards now and pass my boards easily, but I had to teach myself with the career that I chose. Science is great, but doing my MD, PhD would have made my journey so much easier. Thank
you, Shola. Karen?
I think the one thing I would have told myself is that I'm good enough. I think I went through a stage where I didn't feel like I was good enough, and that that low self-esteem and all that did not help me for a minute. So when I was able to gain that confidence and to know that I was good enough, that's when I saw the difference in how I presented myself as well. So I think that, I wish I could go back and say all those comments that everybody else said, or what some teacher said, or what somebody next door said, whatever, that's not who I am. No one else's thought about me defines me. I get to define who I am.
Oh, wow. Powerful. Thank you. Thank you. Shirley?
I guess somewhat similar to Karen's, just really trusting myself more and being more confident, and not necessarily having the expectation that all because I know I have the knowledge that is automatically going to be enough. Sometimes you have to do a little bit more, or go a little bit above and beyond and prove it. Just the fact that I used to think that because I had all this knowledge and I knew my stuff and I knew I was good, that everybody else would see that. But sometimes, and maybe just being a woman of color, you have to go a little bit step beyond to really prove it and solidify that in other people's minds. So getting that awareness a little bit earlier on maybe would have helped.
Very great. Thank you. Natasha?
I would have to reemphasize what I said before. I would raise my hand earlier. I would have raised my hand much earlier in my career, instead of hiding in the corner and working on my little project that no one really cares about. And yeah, definitely step up and take the stage much earlier.
Awesome. Nene?
I think for me, it's in the context of work and your career growth, be afraid, but do it anyway. Just let them be the ones to tell you, no, you can't do it. And but don't ever let your fear of, what could happen or what could go wrong prevent you from doing something that is within you to, want to achieve. And just, do it. And you hopefully have a great support system that is there to cheer you on along the way. But even in your fear, just go for it.
Very great. Thank you. And then we'll go to Bridget.
I think going back, I would just say to, be confident in what you bring to the table and your own value. I talk to a lot of people who are like, well, I have a bachelor's. I don't know if I'm good enough to be. I mean, you are good enough as you are. You bring your unique self to the situation, and nobody can be a better you than you. So you may not have the PhD, you may not have the nursing degree, but find something that you're passionate about. And I bet you that you'll be the best at that than anybody else. So bring that to the job and really kind of lean into that. And you'll be able to make contributions that, will be valuable and that nobody else is bringing. But just that confidence, which I think is something that, even at this stage of my career, it's still something that I have to pump myself up. And so I just love the quotes, especially Nataskia's quotes. I'm like screenshotting them. Like I have these affirmations. I just read them and I just really tell you deserve to be here. You bring something to the table that nobody else does. And so just having that, but I wish I just started that a lot earlier in my career.
Oh, thank you, Bridget, and thanks to everyone. Since I've got my own little square box, I'll throw something in. I'd say get familiar with the words mentoring, coaching, and even maybe later on sponsoring. It'll definitely lengthen the curve or close the gap or whatever that is for you. I'm proud to say Charlotte and Nataskia have definitely played that role in my life. And I've gone through a lot of confusion, being the dedicated science student, got the PhD without batting an eye, went to a postdoctoral